Hello everyone. In the last video that I did, you might remember that I mentioned I'd been sent these videos about 9/11, and I've posted all of these, and I think I gave the links to all of these. I did mention at some point that I was going to make some DVDs, so I did actually do that over the sort of Christmas holiday. I've authored some DVDs, and there's actually 6 in total. And one of them is 4 hours long, so it wouldn't quite fit. But if you want a set of these, you can now order them from the link that's in the description, or come to the website to order them. And I've got about, I think, 4 or 5 sets done at the minute. So do let me know and just order them through the website. And you should, get postage included with the order system on there. So these are obviously, if you can share them, they're not really just meant to, just if you already know this stuff, then they're not really going to be much use to you. There's not much that's new in these, but it's presented in a way that should be more compelling and understandable for people who are very new to this. That's the general idea by the author of these videos, and I still don't know who they are. Okay, so moving on from that, what I was sent recently, I just need to reorder that slightly. I was sent a load of files. Actually, it was over a year ago. A chap sent me a load of interesting files that he collected, and within that, he'd sent this video of it's actually not new. It's from 2009. It's called Revelation of the Pyramids, and I checked, and it is available on YouTube. And it's, as you can see, it's about an hour and 3/4 long. It's a very worthwhile watch. I think some of this I'd seen before, but overall I don't think I'd seen it. There's one particular face that I remember who's sort of a debunker. But if you watch the whole thing, you will learn a few things probably that perhaps you didn't know before about the pyramids. Everyone knows about the geometry and stuff, and the proportions and the ratios that are sort of encoded in the architecture. This goes into quite a lot of detail and suggests why this was done, and it also looks at other sites around the world, such as the Easter Island statues that you saw there, and it looks at Cusco and various other places. Not Göbekli Tepe, because I don't think that had really been come into the mainstream. Then it looks at all these, how these blocks here fit together and stuff. I mean, it's extraordinary stuff when you actually look at this, and it's they speak to various architects and engineers and ask them how they think the pyramids were built and these structures were built, and they give some sort of honest answers. So it's good overall. There's a few sections that are repeated, a few shots are repeated, perhaps one or two too many times, but it does ram the points home very well. So you can give that a watch. And then I flashed up before this because it ties in a lot with, although he's not mentioned in the documentary, it does cover quite a bit of the same territory as some of the books by Graham Hancock, and of course other authors as well. It's just that perhaps Graham Hancock has been one of the most well-known authors. And I can also link in that somebody sent me a link to this site where there's a lot of these books available for download in EPUB format, and some of these books are like over 20 years old now. So if you want to get your hands on the electronic versions of these books, this particular site I think allows you to download 5 or 6 ebooks per day for free. And there's that book there, Fingerprints of the Gods, and then there's Graham Hancock's more recent book from about, I think it's 2019, so it's a couple of years old, 2.5 years old maybe by now. That's also very interesting and ties in with a lot of what's discussed in the video, so I can recommend those if you want to study that sort of area. A lot of interesting stuff in there, and I'm coming to the conclusion that Graham Hancock and those, Randall Carlson, they are correct in that what we are seeing is evidence of a civilization that existed, maybe, pre 12,000 years ago, basically, is the figure that they've settled upon. And Graham Hancock gives quite an exact figure as well, like 12,560 years or something, that there was a cataclysm, and that wiped out most of this previous civilization. But again, going back to the pyramids film, the implication is that the pyramid has perhaps survived pre, the 12,000 year date. Perhaps it's not stated openly, but I think if you take everything together, that's a possibility. So again, you might want to have a read of that and see what you think, because I found it very, very interesting, and I think, this idea that this civilization survived and is now doing things in the background, and possibly has some knowledge that there's going to be another cometary impact at some point, maybe in the next couple of thousand years, something like that. That's quite an interesting proposition, and I think there is some evidence that supports the idea being correct, basically. I suppose why I'm including this. And on a similar theme then, I was also sent this article by the author, a very interesting article, and you can have a read of this. The author I've had exchanged a few emails with, and I've very much enjoyed reading what he sent, but I found this a little bit hard to get into at first. And the author goes through the meaning of geometric shapes in terms of things like a sacred geometry and what their actual meaning might be. And he makes reference to things like the circle being relevant to the concepts of heaven, oneness, wholeness, cosmos, all the eternal order and eternity, and so forth. And then he goes through the basic shapes of the triangle, the square, and so forth. And then he goes through various explanations of what those symbols signify. And some very interesting concepts there, some of which I was familiar with, some of which I wasn't. And he describes the pyramid, for example, it is a synthesis of different forms, each with its own significance. It combines the shape of its base, usually square, i.e. representing the earth, with triangles representing communication between the material world and heaven. In a quadrangular pyramid, each face of the pyramid corresponds to the one of the cardinal points, and the summit, or the apex, represents the centre. The apex is the starting point and finishing point of all things, the mystic centre. That was an interesting paragraph that he put in there. And then he goes starts to go into the reasons why I've decided to make this short video. And he references some of the stuff that I've put in my Secrets of the Solar System book, and he references this image, which is a comparison of features on Mars on the left in a region called Cydonia and Avebury. Now, this image that he's used is actually, I think, was generated by David Percy or Mary Bennett, I'm not sure, but it originally came from the Orlis website. He's credited it to Scott Onstott here, but I don't think he's the original source, although he may have reposted it. But anyway, that's beside the point. And then he starts to go into the features of Silbury Hill here and the Tholus and so forth, and he likens these perhaps to being some of these geometric shapes and symbolic shapes being combined to give various meaning, which is quite interesting. And he talks about the various numbers as well, such as 3, 7, 12 and 9 and things, and what they might signify. And then he goes through some other comparisons of shapes which may or may not include sacred geometry. It's quite interesting, but this number 2 image, I initially didn't really twig what this was, but it's not in my Secrets in the Solar System book, and he's suggesting, as I think the other author is in this next article, that this might be a stone circle. So I was quite intrigued by this because I hadn't seen this image before, and the author of this article seems to have picked it up from this blog on the Daily Grail, which I think was probably done, it says September 28th here. I don't know which date that was, or whether it was 2020, or I think it was probably 2020. It could have been earlier than that. I haven't been able to find the exact date, but never mind. So this is where he picked up this image of this strange thing on Mars, and it is on Mars because this article thankfully gives the original sources, and it will take you both to this Facebook page, which of course isn't quite the original source of this image. We'll get to that in a second, and this is where he picked this image up from. In the did Martian druids build the Mars henge? He picked it up from this Facebook page here, and that takes you to this image here, which is this one here, and you can just about see this here in this one, but this still isn't the full resolution image. You have to go to this page, which is the University of Arizona, and download, I think it's one of these images here, and it gets pretty big. I think one of these is 400 megabytes, and there's this other one as well, which is 700 megabytes. So if you want to see the full resolution thing, you have to download that whole image of 700 megabytes. And also, you can see here that when I've downloaded it, it took, I think it took, I'm running GIMP, and it took probably a minute or so, 45 seconds to load this image, because as you can see at the bottom here perhaps, this image is 4.1 gigabytes, and you'll see why in a minute, because I can scroll down this image from high rise, and we'll just have a closer look in a minute. And it looks sort of more interesting to a planetary geologist, of course, but this, I wanted to download this image so I could check that it was authentic and also check the context of this so-called henge. So you can see here that we've got this image, and I can now zoom in using GIMP and get the full image, and you can see it does indeed look rather unusual, and I decided to look around at some of the other nearby rocks, so I can zoom out a bit now. As I say, it can be quite a challenge to move this around in the computer's memory because it's such a high resolution image, multi-megapixel. And again here you can see this mound quite nearby. Firstly, it's not circular, and it doesn't have any rocks on the top. There are other mounds that do have some rocks on the top. I found one, I think, lower down here somewhere that's got rocks on the top. There's, say, this one here, for example, that has a few rocks on the side. And is it this one here? Oops, that's gone zoomed in too much. So there are other areas. I can press M to zoom around this here, and it can struggle to move it sometimes. So you can zoom in on this, for example, and see some of these rocks. I mean, it is a very high resolution image, as you can see. You can see it's meant to be, I think, 25 centimeters per pixel or something, so it's 4 pixels a meter. So it is a very high resolution image. So that does look random. So if we now go back to the so-called henge, which is up at the top here, it's going to struggle on this one now because it's shifting around the data. So I'm going to pause this. And now it's settled down again after a few seconds of trying to shuffle all its memory around. So again, I can zoom in to get back to the henge, or alleged henge, and it does seem quite interesting that we've got this sort of depression around it. We've got not quite a circular mound, it's slightly oval shape, but that's quite interesting. And then the other thing that I thought was quite interesting is you can see these lines here. Is this just evidence of water flow, or is it evidence of terraces being built? I'm really not sure. But this is quite an interesting image overall. I'm not sure it's quite as compelling as some of the other images of the pyramid-like structures and so forth, and the dome. But again, it's another interesting image from Mars, and I just wanted to highlight it. The links are in the description, but if you want to get to this high-resolution image, you're going to need a fairly high-spec computer. I don't think you'll be able to look at this on a phone or a tablet. you won't be able to download this JP2 image and unpack it. So as I say, it's taking up 4 gigabytes of memory, and I've got a memory monitor on my computer here, and it's taking up 85% of RAM, 13 gigabytes out of 15, well 15.9. I've got 16 gigabytes, but some of it is used for video memory. So be aware of, if you want to look at this, it might be quite tricky. But so there you are. I don't know what to make of it. The Druid article, if I go back to that now, that makes some more suppositions and possible angles on this, so you can have a read of that if you want. But I just thought I'd make a video, so I hope you found that interesting. So that's all for now, really. I'm going to leave you with those things. The links are in the description. Again, if I got another YouTube strike for posting the 9/11 video, so again, go over to the Odyssey channel, subscribe there, or subscribe to BitChute, and see what you make of that. And I'll talk to you again in the next video. Thanks for your support, and I wish you well for 2022, and I hope that the insane people are somehow taken out of the way, so that we can just go back to a more sensible sort of life and freedom that we had before.